Hope you guys are doing well. Continuing on our journey, today we would be trying to understand what specificity is, and we'll see like uh, why do we need it in the first place, and then we will see the different rules that we can use to have the specificity. Now, so there is a specificity. There is a problem, right? So what if we have multiple rules targeting the same element? So, for example, so let's assume that this is an H1 tag, right? So, what if I'm applying multiple CSS properties to this H1 tag? Now, which property which property will be applied to the um, which property will be applied it to will be applied to H1? That is what is determined by specificity, right? So specificity basically mentions like which property is going to be applied to which element, right? Now specificity is often so let's see. Now there are certain rules for mentioning specificity, right? So let's see. So the first point is basically specificity is a four part. It is a four part. It is of four part value. Uh, often often written as a comma b comma c comma d. So we'll see what does a represent, what does b represents, and then what is c, and then what is d. Okay, so basically a the first element is basically for um, so A is basically represents inline style, right? So what if we have an inline style, then it is represented by A. So represents uh, A represents inline styles. Then let's go to B. So B is basically representing number of IDs, right? So basically, what if we are applying an attribute called as ID? So then that is what is going to be applied. Now C represents number of classes, now attributes, and then and pseudo classes. So pseudo classes. Then the last thing, D basically represents number of elements, names, and pseudo elements. Now, in normal flow, CSS is compiled or parsed from top to bottom, right? That means the property at the bottom should be applied. So if there is a property that is being applied to an element at the bottom, that should be applied on the element, right? But then the but often we will see in cases where we expect the bottommost property to be applied, but then because of specificity rules, the topmost the topmost priority will be applied. So and then what is going to happen is the highest priority is which the higher specificity uh, values are going to win. So if you are having two elements that are getting styled twice, and then whatever is having the higher specificity, so we will compare it from left to right in the four part value. So we will first start with in the four part value we'll start with first comparing with A, then we'll start comparing B, then C, and then D. So whatever is going to win here, or whatever is specificity is whatever is the highest specificity, or like, so suppose I have two values, right? If it is 0 1 0, I have 0 1 0 0, right? And then I have one is I have 0 0 2 to 0, right? So the way this is going to happen is, the first it will compare 0 with 0. So now this is same value, right? So this both is same. Then it will go to 0 and 1. So here 1 is higher than 0, right? So 1 is greater than 0. So whatever rule is been mentioned here will be applied here, and this will override this behavior. Now, so let's see some examples how specificity is going to work. So let's see some easy specificity calculation examples, and then we will see some complex ones. Okay, so first is basically my first is a very simple, right? It's the tag itself. So then you okay, so then what is so our goal is basically to calculate the specificity, right? So we need to find the specificity of this element. Okay. So as we said, first is basically going to represent my uh, first is going to represent the inline styles. Then second is number of IDs. Third is number of classes, attributes, and pseudo classes. Then fourth is number of elements, names, and pseudo elements. Now, so here there is no ID, no class. It is just a basic direct element, right? So if it is direct element selection, so we have also, yeah, here in this we have the fourth is basically the number of elements, right? This basically indicates if it's directly we are selecting the element, then this value will be high. So the value for a specificity here will be 0. First 0 is for inline styles. There is no inline. The second 0 is for number of IDs. Third is for classes, pseudo classes, or attributes. Yeah. Then now fourth is basically for if you are doing direct elements, or if you are using a pseudo element, or yeah, if you have directly elements or we have a pseudo. So the specificity of this value is of the specific value of this tag is, or of this selection is 0001. So let's see another example. So we need to calculate the specificity of this, right? Okay, so okay, so now the first is basically for first is for inline. No, it's there is do have an inline style? No, then I go 0. Now am I using any ID? No, the second is for 0. The third is basically for class, pseudo class, or attributes, right? So I have, so this is basically a class based this is a class based selection, right? So this is my class, right? So this is talks dot basically represent that I'm doing a class based selection. And then the last one will be again the same thing, right? So the last one is I don't have any pseudo element, or neither do I have any element selection happening, so it's going to be 0. Okay. Now let's see, this is main, right? Now okay, let's have this. Okay, let's calculate the specificity of this. So first is basically for inline. No, it's not an inline styling. Second is for ID, right? Now this hash indicates that we are using an ID selector over here. Oh no. Yeah, let this be large. I need to have my marker. This hash is going to, oh, let's make this. This hash indicates that this is my ID selector, right? So then this is going to be 0. So then is for id. Third is for class, right? So I don't have class or pseudo elements. And last is for, sorry, third is for pseudo class or classes, no. And then fourth is for pseudo elements or elements. So that is as well 0. So the specificity is 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, now we have multiple classes coming up. This is okay. So okay, let's see. Let's go to an arrow. So we need to calculate the specificity of this. So first is for inline. No, this is not inline. Then is for do I have an ID or an no? Do I have a class or do I have pseudo classes? No. Do I have elements? Yes, I have elements. How many of them? 3. So these 3, okay, I have 3 elements, right? So this is an unordered list. This is my list element and anchor. So then, so at the last, what I'm going to do is, since I have 3 present here, so I'm going to do 3. Specificities of this is going to be 0, 0, 0, 3. Now let's add more. Okay. Now, yeah, let's try to calculate the specificity of this. Okay, so then the first is for inline. So inline is 0. And am I doing an ID? Yes, I have an ID. Do I have a class? Yes, I have a class. Do I have elements or pseudo elements? Yes. So this is, so specificity of this is going to be uh, this is my third group which is coming here. So this is, and this is my class, right? So this is contributing to my class, and this is my element. Let me place it here. The specificity of this is going to be 0, 0, 0, comma 1, comma 1, comma 2. Yeah, I have, no, yeah, that's correct. Now okay, let's see someone when we are trying to have attributes, right? So let's let's uh let's make this large. Let's go to color. We are trying to calculate the specificity of this, right? Okay, so this is my attribute selector. This is my attribute, right? So this is, I'm doing an attribute to, and this is my pseudo element because it is going to represent state. Oh, this is my pseudo class, right? Pseudo classes are responsible for state. Like it will be related to some sort of state management or something. So now this, how to calculate the specificity of this. So first is 0. First is for inline, right? So there is no inline. And my second is for, am I using second thing that comes is for number of IDs. No, I don't have any ID selection here. So then I'm going to do 0. Now my third parameter, do I have a class? Yes. Or do I have a class or a pseudo class? Yes, I have a pseudo class, that is first, and I have an attribute as well. So when, so then what is going to happen is I'm going to have 2. Why 2? Because one is for this attribute. Okay. Because one is, oh no, let's this color be then. Now I am having 2 is, one is going to represent the attribute. This is my attribute, and the other is going to represent this focus class. This is a pseudo class, right? So then it is going to be 0, 0, 2. And then, okay, now in the third, do I have any do I have any element? Yes, I have an element that is input, right? Or do I have any pseudo element? No, I don't have any pseudo element, but I have an element. Specificity is going to be 0, 0, 2, comma 1. Now next is basically for inline. So let's this is an inline selection, right? When you have the style in the HTML tag itself, then it is called as inline selection, right? The specificity for this can be or will be calculated as the first position is going to be for inline, so I'm going to have 1. The second position is going to be for my IDs, that is 0. The third position is going to be for pseudo class or class selector, that is going to be 0. And the fourth is going to be to have an element or a pseudo element, so it's going to be 0. Now we have a code. Now we are applying so I have okay, let's see. Now I have two properties or two CSS rule being mentioned here. The specificity of this will be ID, right? So it is, hence it is hence we are get no let this be, hence we are getting this as uh hence we are getting this as 1, right? And the specificity, so I have two classes. The middle one represents for pseudo class or class selector. Now the problem, now which one is going to win? So suppose in the HTML markup, I have an ID and a class, like both of these attached. So now when you compare the specificity, let's compare the specificity. I have one, I have 0 comma 1 0, and then 0, okay, 0 and 0, and the other I have 0 comma 0 comma 2 comma 0. If I have to compare, let's see how the comparison is going to take place. Now this is 1 and 0. Okay, so let's start from, we'll start from left, right? These both comparison, it's same, right? Now in this case, when we come here, 1 is going to get then 0, right? So this specificity is going to win, and we are not checking the other ones. Now okay, now when it comes to pseudo classes, there is caveat over there. Like not all pseudo classes will contribute to specificity, right? Only some of them will contribute to specificity. So we'll try to understand, or we'll see which elements, which pseudo class do not contribute to specificity. Now okay, now the main ones that do not contribute to specificity are basically logical structure or negation, right? These won't uh, contribute to specificity, but let's see a little bit more in them. Okay, so now first pseudo class that we will see is basically where, right? Now where by itself it won't contribute to specificity, right? So where inside would have an higher specific element, so the specificity of where wouldn't be included. So the specificity of where is 0, right? No matter whatever you have placed inside. Now then we have something called as not pseudo class, right? Now here it is what is kind of becomes tricky, right? Now it will itself it won't count, but then it will depend. Itself won't, it will not contribute. It will not contribute to specificity, not contribute to, but then depending upon what is written inside. Now that thing, but the selector inside will contribute to specific selector written inside will contribute. So for example, if I have a div, okay, now let's see one example over here so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. Now let's try to calculate the specificity of this element. So if you say let's have an, now first is basically for first is representing inline, right? So that is going to be 0. Second is going to represent IDs. I don't have that either. And the third is basically for my class. Now this are in pseudo classes, right? Now this not will not this, even though this is a pseudo class, this won't contribute. However, this active class present here will contribute to specificity and will make it this will be 1, right? So now I have the specificity here to be as so 1, this is going to be 1. And then for the element that is coming in, so for example, this element that is coming in, so that is going to be my last, so that is also going to be 1. The specificity of this will be 0011. Okay, because yeah, the only difference, so where has a 0 specificity irrespective of what you are going to write inside. Now okay, uh okay, now yeah, so now let's see how specificity is going to work in different pseudo classes. Let's see that. Now, for example, now if it's a state based class like hover class, or this or all are going to contribute to specificity. Now, if it's a first child and child, again these are going to contribute to specificity. For example, if it's any user interaction, again this is going to contribute. Now, logical except where, so where will never come in specificity, right? Now, is and has is something what is a bit complicated, and it will depend on what is inside. So always be careful. So like it will depend on what's present inside, right? So let's take one complicated case of specificity written inside is, right? Okay, now the job is, so if you see the functioning of how is going to do is, it is going to select all those elements that is supporting this, right? So now if you come inside, and inside if you check, you have three different elements written with three different specificity, right? Now the problem here is all of these elements have different specificity. So the one that has the highest specificity contributor is going to be working based on that, right? So it is going to select that element which has the highest specificity if you have multiple elements present here, because the way is defined is, it is used to check whether uh, the working of is not it's something else, right? The working of is pseudo class uh, So this working is a little bit different, right? It's not like how um yeah. So what it is going to do is it is taking going to take a list of comma separated separators, right? Basically, I have going to have a comma separated separators, and whatever is going to match and matches if any of them apply. So it is going to match if any of them apply. But then what is going to happen is if I have a higher specificity, then the highest specificity element will be the contributing factor, right? Because this is what is going to be matched first. Now let's see an example where we are going to compact or where we are going to combine two selectors, right? So remember, as we said, whatever is the here is going to be a list of in is we are going to pass a list of selectors, right? So this is basically my list of selectors that is being passed, and whatever is matching based on that we are going to select. Now button and a are both are having the same, right? So it's going to be one. Both are contributing one, so the highest is going to be one. But then this is whoever is has a specificity, right? So that is going to contribute towards my pseudo class specificity. But this is in inherent in its nature is not going to contribute the same. So let's see with has as well, right? So if you do has, what it is going to do is it is going to check, do I have that specific selector that is being passed. Yeah, because it is called as parent selector, right? If it's let's style an element based on its children or descendants. So if I say, okay, if I say, does so style whatever, so like suppose if I have a parent, right? Suppose if I have multiple articles and I want to style only that article who has a child h2 with it. So I want to target that h2, that article that has a child h2 inside it, right? There are multiple articles present here. So so here what we can do is, here is when you can use the power of as, right? So the way it is going to work is, um, the way it will be written is, so yeah. So does my so this so basically here is the parent element that is the article, and then I'm checking whether my children h2 is present or not. Now how will I calculate this specificity? Okay, so let's calculate the specificity here. Okay. So now, remember the rule. The first is for inline, right? So this is not inline, so it's going to be 0. Second is for id, again that is going to be 0. Third is for a pseudo class. So now I have hash that is present here, but then hash itself does not contribute, right? Now hash h2 is a pseudo class. So then in is this doesn't contribute, or in has this is going to contribute, right? The h2 inside is ignored for specificity, same rule. The this because h2 and okay, now there is a little bit difference in has specificity. Has specificity will depend upon what's inside. If I have a more specific element present inside this, then this specificity will be ignored. Is that? Is that how it is working? Yeah, so has itself won't contribute towards specificity. Uh, has itself does not contribute, but the selectors inside has do not affect specificity. So what he's trying to say is, okay, this is not oh, so we are, yeah, so has is going to contribute, right? So you will have the has specificity which is coming in. The has is a pseudo class, right? So then it will make my pseudo class specificity to be one. And then if you go for element, right? So the h2 will not contribute to that, but instead the article that is an element, right? So that has to contribute to the specificity, I guess. So that should be 1 1. Yeah, it will be 0 0 1 1. Yes. Even though the internal selector is more specific, the internal selectors will not increase the specificity, right? As only contributes to one or whatever you write inside. Okay. So like two things, like so first is never contributes to specificity. Is never contributes, but has like irrespective of what is present inside, irrespective of what is present, the specificity is one. And then in if it's in is, we have a list of selectors, then the most specific selector specificity will be applied. Okay. Now the third point is yeah, where does not contribute. So where specificity is zero. Whatever you write, so specificity will always be zero. Okay. Now there is a specificity for universal selector as well. If I have a universal selector specificity, I guess universal selector has the highest specificity and it tries to override everything. Now universal selector has zero specificity. That means it never adds any weight in a specific specificity battle, and it's the weakest. So if I have a universal selector, so universal, okay, it can be easily overridden. Universal selector specificity, specificity is zero and can be easily overridden. Okay. Now, if I see for the working of is, okay, when to use is, let's like, because the job of the idealistic case is uh, basically instead of repeating selectors, you can just uh, okay, you can write when you want to group variations of elements in the same context. For example, when first is to simplify relative selectors, right? Okay, so for example, I have three nav, right? So then basically this is presenting inside nav. You go to h1, right? So I have this is my nav, and in that first you go to h1, then you go to h2, and then go to h3. Now what is going to happen is, so wherever that match is going to happen. So if I write the same thing using is, the way it is going to work is, but then this specificity and is specificity will be different, I guess. Okay, let's see. This is going to be, This will be written it as this like this way, right? And then the specificity here is going to be nav is an element, and then I have h1, h2, h3. This specificity is going to be these are elements, right? So this is element, this is element. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Also, it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 6, I guess. 0, comma. The first is for inline, then is for ID, then is for class, and third is for inline. So this is going to be 6. If I calculate this specificity, or this specificity is going to be, was it isn't uh, there a difference in specificity? Yeah, it's hmm. This specificity is going to be at max it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, right? Because this is only one contributing factor, irrespective of what's written. Okay, so there is one more thing. Uh, yeah, when you have multiple being present, then most specific selector will be applied. Then most selector specificity will be applied, and that will that override? Okay, the final specificity is only of going to be the uh, most specific element. Yeah, it kind of sneaks into high specificity. We should be very careful while we are using this, because we can do. Uh, let's see an example where that kind of becomes dangerous. So let's see if I paste this thing here. Uh, okay, now this is using is right. If I was using normal way, then this would be written as dot card uh, dot card then as title, right? So now the specificity has changed. So this specificity can be calculated as this is 0. Now there is an ID, right? So this is going to be 0, 1. There is a class as well, and there is no element. This is going to be 0. However, if I come here, notice the specificity contribution over here. So this specificity is going to be calculated as, let's yeah, let's get rid of this thing. Let's have an arrow present here. The way you are going to calculate this specificity is initially it's going to be so card is 0, right? So that is, so this is going to be 0. I am going to have 1 for uh, okay, let's write all the four values first. So this is going to be 1 for a class. Now title is more specific, right? uh, then this is going to be 1, and then this is going to be 0. So this is going to come same, but then what if instead of title I change this to, yeah, what if instead of title I have an h1 here? Now is where the problem is going to come. This h1 is going to not contribute here, it's going to contribute over here, right? So this has become more specific than this. And if title is isn't it doesn't decrease the it doesn't, if even if title is inside, it's not going to, so in where the contribution is 0, right? So we are not making it more specific or less specific. There is a specificity difference when you are using is, so make sure that the specificity is. So is this dry? Is this basically to group selectors? Um, it will apply to any element that matches either inside selector. So for example, I have h1 and title both, but it still counts. Okay, even though it is going to be applied to both of them, it will apply to both h1 and title. But then the way, if I have some specificity, or if I'm trying to write this way, uh, then this is going to become more prominent and this will be discarded. Okay, so the problem here that is going to happen this now, since it is written is, so what this is going to do, this is going to target both. Okay, let's have this as excel, this as orange. So what this is going to do is, it is going to target both h1 and title, and this is also targeting h1, right? And it's the same, but the specificity of this is going to be more. So irrespective of whatever you have here, that will be overridden by this specific class. Oh, because that is more specific, right? So here there is a specificity difference, that overriding will not work as expected because there are other elements that are contributing to specificity more, right? Now, so there is if this would have been using has, now so what is irrespective of what is present, has only adds one. Uh, so has will only. Yeah, that is why. Let's see some specificity with combinators. Let's see that. So, for example, what if we are having or we are using multiple combinators to calculate the specificity? Okay, let's see one. Let's see that example. Uh, Specificity. Let's calculate one specificity using combinators as well. Okay. So the combinators, they don't contribute towards specificity. Like combinators inherently by themselves do not contribute. So combinators by self do not um do not contribute uh, towards specificity, specificity. However, the selectors will contribute. However, the selectors uh, will still uh, contribute, right? For example, uh, okay, now let's see this example and let's try to calculate this specificity, right? Let's change this. Now, the way the specificity here is going to work is this is going to be 0 for class, since there is no class based selector. Oh, sorry, first is for inline, right? So 0 for inline, second is 0 for ID, third is going to be 0 for class or pseudo class. A fourth is going to be for my pseudo elements and pseudo elements and elements based. So these are two elements based, right? So this is one div. Let's have a Yeah, let's have this as small. This is my first div that is going to okay. This is my first div and this is my second, right? So then this is going to be and then 0 comma 1 comma 1. No, instead of having 1, it will be 0 comma 1, 0 comma 0 comma 2. Okay, space is going to be ignored here, although there is a so here you have a space combinator that is present, right? That is ignored. Same if you have greater than then no yeah, active is again so this is okay, yeah, that's okay. I'll just look this Let us take a look at one more complex thing and then we'll see what is the cascading effect that is coming in. Let's have Excel. Let's make this white now. So the way to calculate the specificity for this or the specificity for this would be given by first is for inline, that is going to be 0. Second is for my id, that is again 0. Third is for do I have a class. Now this L dot active is representing a class, right? This dot active part is my class part, so I'm going to have a 1 there. The next thing that I need I'm going to add is do I have then I am going to check for pseudo classes or pseudo elements and elements. So I have two li and ul, so this is going to be 2. Yeah, these two both are going to contribute, right? This ul and li, these are my elements. So then it is going to be 0 comma 1 comma 0 comma 0 0 comma 0 comma 1 comma 2. This is and what I'm ignoring this specificity, although this is present here, and this does not come or contribute towards my specificity, so we are ignoring this part. This is getting ignored here. You can just ignore that. Okay. So the now we understood about specificity, right? Now let's see the cascading effect. So if you see in CSS, it's cascading style sheets, right? So we already studied about style sheets. Now let's see the cascading effect, like what's going to happen. Now the cascading is basically how a browser decides which CSS. Oh, we already did that. Is it that cascade? So when multiple rules match, the browser uses this order to choose the finite style. Now, first is basically uh, if so, cascading is basically how browsers are going to okay. Cascading is oh, let's have the lighter version. Oh, what happened? So cascading is how browsers choose which CSS rule to apply. Rule to apply uh, in the case of multiple matches, right? So in the case of multiple rule matching. So now first is basically rules with importance. So for if you have any rule that has, okay, let's see. Okay, so first is basically uh, this is not any rule which is having this is going to be preferred over everything. Next is basically specificity is calculated. If it suppose it's not important and specificity is there, then we check more specific element. The third rule, or basically the third behavior that the browser check, is basically source order. So if at the specificity level we are also not able to resolve, then we check at source order. So what is written at last will be applied because CSS parsing happens from top to bottom. What is written at last will be parsed, will be will appear, will win. Now even that is not able to contribute, then we see style sheet origin, like where so like how did we link our style sheet, like style sheet origin, like how are we linking our style sheets. Is it uh, is it inline, is it like default by the browser? We have default as well, for example agent style sheet. The second is, am I using an external, like external. Third is it inline, and then fourth is user style sheets, for example any browser extension or anything like that. Now what does cascade mean? So cascade plus specificity plus so cascade is basically that top to bottom. Now let's see the English meaning of cascade. So English meaning of, we haven't seen what does cascade mean, right? So if you see English, cascade is basically is a flow downward in stages, like a waterfall, right? So then we said the source order, right? So this is one. This is very important. Then, so if can I highlight this? How to highlight this? So let's go to this is an highlighter. Yeah, the source order. So this is basically is what my okay. I got. Uh, let's say yeah. Now this is nothing but my cascade, right? So cascade is like a waterfall. So cascade of things is a waterfall. So whenever you have a waterfall, basically a sequence of things happening one another. So I'm doing this. The process of deciding, because I'm following certain rules, like it's like flowing down from multiple sources. So then, I mean, it's the cascade means uh, no. Let's no, let's move this thing out because it's coming inside that. Because we are moving in this order, right? There is a certain waterfall like thing. We are deciding how the flow is going to happen, how the rules are going to be applied. So cascading effect is like a waterfall. This is an example. This is a waterfall, right? So a waterfall will come from uh, top. Oh no, this is not what I want. This is like a so basically a waterfall will come from top, right? So this is my, suppose this is my peak. The waterfalls are always from top to bottom, right? So then when I'm at the bottom, I have the flow will become normal. It's only this part during which the flow will be turbulent when it's falling, right? After some time, it will become like a normal flow. So this is what is cascading, right? So the 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 rule or the phenomenon by which how we are going to identify which rule or which CSS rule will be applied in case of there is a match, we are following a certain pattern, right? And that pattern is this way. This is the pattern that we are going to follow, right? To check. That is nothing but the cascade effect. Because it's a layered system for picking which style will be applied. Like there is a certain rules that we follow. Okay, now there is something called the in new okay. Now there is one more addition of something called as a layer, right? In modern CSS. So CSS has introduced this layer. It is basically a way to group style and control their order in the cascade. So what you can do is you can okay. So now there is something now in modern CSS you have something called as layers, right? So now what so layers is basically the job of layer is basically to control override behavior without the use of important, right? Because if that important is present, then it will be accepted, right? Then in modern CSS you have um we have layer being used, right? The goal of layer is to avoid the usage of we're going to avoid the usage of at the rate uh, we are going to avoid the usage of importance, right? This not important behavior. Now how it is going to work is even if the base overrides. Now how it is different than normal. So in normal CSS specificity plus the source order is what is going to decide. But when it comes with layer, now the specificity will change. So it will be so if you're writing anything with so the specific this layer has come. So instead of having the source order, now we have this layer order that is coming in. So whatever is present in the layer will be so even if the button is more specificity, a button in overrides can mean if specificity is equal. Yeah, so this is basically what it is going to do is it is kind of the new modern things that are going to come that have come up. Now we are going to override something. Now what is uh, so later layers are going to override the higher one. For example, okay, I'm going to have this layer, right? This is my layer that is coming at the bottom. Okay, so this is going to override. So I have three layers where so this override is going to override both of them, I guess. Let's see. Uh, and uh, Okay, so okay, so this list layer is what we are going to see. This layer, this is what is we are going to check. So whatever is, so this order is important. So whatever comes last here will be overridden. So for example, let's see two code pieces. Okay. Let's there's something wrong with TL draw. Please try refreshing now. Let's open a new session itself. I don't know. TL draw. If you go here, it's not allowing me to paste the code. I don't know. There's some bug right now. So yeah, as I said, this layer. So if in this code I make put this layer comes over here and this component goes over, but it is not on that. It's on this list how it is defined. Since in the list it is coming in the second, so then it will be overriding all properties. It's not this order. It is this order that matters. Now, where is this being used? Now, this is a modern type of CSS. So in native CSS, however, the support is for all, right? For example, whenever it is like a UI framework, we will try to use this layer thing. Okay, so basically, cascading is that waterfall effect that is going to define which CSS property will be applied in case. So this is like here the stream is going to be turbulent, right? So once the water is coming from here, right? So the once it come here, then it is going to be normal flow. So this is what we need to mention, right? And what we need to check. That is defined by cascading. Basically, which style will apply. So we have different rules for that. We saw that. However, in if you are using at the rate layer, now this is a modern CSS feature. So instead of at last we check the order, right? But then in layer there is a additional check that we do is we check this layer order. If the layer order before checking the source order. I guess this is all for this lecture. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till that time, take care. Bye bye.